it's Marianne from Yarnworx Studio, and today I've got a really fun crochet pattern for you that I'm going to step through. It doesn't take very long and it makes a beautiful home decor item. So here's what we're making today. It's called a creamy crochet coaster, and this is a pattern I developed a couple of years ago, and I'm just making sort of a proper video for it now. But I made this to be a nice home decor item for people who, you know, you're not sure what to get them. They make wonderful gifts, perfect stocking stuffers if it's season for that. And it's got a nice simple pattern, and I have different ways to modify it to kind of fit any coaster base. So how this is constructed is it's actually worked around a cork coaster. Doesn't have to be cork. I'll show you. I made another one more holiday themed because right now it's the start of November, so more holiday themed. Here's one in red, and it's wrapped around actually a holiday coaster that I picked up from Walmart. So I'll actually go through all my materials here and we can make sure we have everything in place, and then we'll be ready to go. I can, you know, make one of these in 10 minutes. So it's one of those things that once you get the hang of it, you can really crank them out and they make wonderful gifts, and you can really play with the colors and customize it to make it your own. So yeah, here it is. We've got the cover and a coaster. Now most of the coasters that I'm using are from Walmart or Amazon, so they should be readily available, but truly I can put in information on my blog if you go to yarnworxstudio.com. That's Yarnworx with an X. And you'll find the full pattern, written pattern with multiple tutorial videos. I can show you on there the different sort of sizing I do and customizations I do based on the size of the coaster base. So let's start by talking through some of the materials that we have. I'll just do a close-up here so that we can have that. I did bring a mug so you can see sort of what it looks like. This is an oversized giant mug, but it just makes a really nice stack of coasters. And you can see here I've got several red ones, and they stack really nicely. They sit really nicely in a drawer or out on display. And then you can very easily take the cover off and you can wash them. And that's super, super simple to do as well. So let's talk about materials. I'll talk about the coasters first. So I mentioned I have this set that I got from Walmart in 2020, late 2020, in store in Canada. The cover looks like this. It's just a 4 set of festive coasters. I did this because they didn't have any of the regular ones in stock when I wanted to make some festive ones anyways. And this was $2.47 at Walmart in Canada. The other ones that I have for my tutorial today, these are more flexible. They're cork as well. I got these on Amazon, and I'll put a link in my blog post. I've got the wrapping here. It's called Log Hog. I mean, there's a ton of options available. These are both 4 inches. This one's almost 4 inches. This one claims to be 4 inches. They are roughly the same size, so that's good. And this one's really flexible and thin. There are some that are thicker. And when I originally made this, I got some. They were from Walmart. They were either, you know, the mainstays or the great value or whatever the basic sort of Walmart brand was, but they were also very cheap, cost effective, and they were thicker and a little bit bigger than this. So I'll show you how to adjust for that. So you'll need some coasters of some sort. Again, I recommend if you're going to be going with sort of a red color, try to have a similar base if you can, or have a plain base. I wouldn't try to put the white ones over top of this necessarily, because I think a lot of the pattern's going to show through. There are some holes in the pattern. It does have a little bit of some gaps in there, so be careful for that. Let's see, what else? What else do I use? So for yarn, my red coasters are made with a Bernat Handicrafter cotton, a really good standard cotton. All my coasters that I do are made in cotton because they don't really change in size when you wash them, just like I use for dishcloths and things like that. And then this creamy coaster color, which is this white creamy one, this is actually a Yarnspirations Caron cake. If you haven't seen these Caron cakes, they're kind of all over the place online, but they're exclusive to Michael's in stores, and Yarnspirations makes them, and these ones are the cotton cakes. There's all sorts of varieties. There are ones that come in self color blocking colors. This is just a plain one. I think the color is actually called white. It's called white. Some of the plain ones come in some beautiful colors. I really like this yarn. It It's interesting because it comes and works up really nicely. It's a cotton acrylic blend. It's quite thin, which is great, but you'll have to check your gauge on that when you're working on it because it might be a little bit different than with the regular cottons. What else do I use? I use crochet hooks, obviously, because this is a crochet pattern. I use, for this one, it depends on which yarn I'm using and the size of the coaster base, but I use a 3.5mm or 4mm. So I've used both in these ones that I have here, and we'll talk through sort of that customization as well. Obviously my old standard, a tapestry needle, which is a blunt-ended needle, and some scissors. So just my little scissors that I use for my yarn only. And that's all that you need. So from there, sorry, itchy here. So I think we can go ahead and get started. So I'll talk a little bit about the customization. So this is the actual cover here that you'll make. And how we're going to construct it is we're going to start in a round with a magic loop. We're going to go around, and then you may or may not do this extra round depending on the size of your coaster and your gauge and your needle or your hook and whatnot. And then you do some back loop only to make this side panel, and then some back loop only again to make the portion that hugs around the coaster. And it's that simple. It's not too stretchy. It's not really loose. And it looks beautiful. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started making our creamy crochet coasters. So for my tutorial today, I'm going to actually use a 3.5mm hook, and I'm going to use the Caron Cake cotton cake in white. So to get started, the first thing we want to do is we want to do a magic loop. Now, if you've never done a magic loop before, it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. What we've got here, maybe I'll curl it so you can see it. We've got our yarn end here, and we loop it around in a backwards 4, as I like to call it, with the working yarn coming off over top. And then in the same way I do my slip stitches, or my slip knots, you want to go under the sort of leg of the 4, grab this yarn, and you're going to pull it up and through. And then I flip it over so you can see that I've got that like that, the working yarn down here. And then what you want to do is we want to do 12 double crochets into this magic loop. And the reason we do a magic loop is so that at the end we can cinch it really tight so that this hole isn't big and gaping. It's just a nice and tight pulled stitch there to make your sort of center really small. So first we'll need to chain 2, 1, 2, just to get up to the level we need. Now throughout this I do chain up on the new rounds, but I don't count that. I basically ignore them as a stitch altogether. So you can see I'm just going to keep this yarn end hanging out down here in my circle, and you'll see why in a minute. So to start I'm going to do, okay, so I've chained 2. Now I'm going to do a double crochet, which is a yarn over, go into your magic loop, pull up your yarn over through 2 loops, and then yarn over through 2 loops. That's 1 double crochet, and we're going to do 12 total. So once you have them, you can see them all lined up in a row here, and this is where the magic loop part comes in, which is really fun. So you take your yarn end, that's the end that's not connected to your ball. You see it's kind of wound around here. What you're going to do is you're going to start pulling on it, and you'll see that it starts tightening up this loop, and you can pull it really tight. So I'm just kind of holding the base and giving it a good tug, and that makes it really close up nicely. Then what we're going to do is we are going to slip stitch into the first double crochet. Oops, grabbed too much yarn there. Okay, so we're ignoring these chains altogether. They're just there to help us get to the height. And then you can keep pulling on this, so whenever you want to kind of cinch it in the middle, you can just tug on it again until we weave it in, and we'll do our final cinching then. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do the what I call kind of the flower aspect here. So we're going to go around, and these are with actual treble crochets. These are US terms. So a treble crochet is kind of like a UK triple crochet, I think you call it. I can't remember. So these are treble crochets. So we are going to actually chain up 3 to get up to the right height. And then in that same stitch that we're in right now, which is this one here, we are going to do a treble cluster. So we're going to yarn over twice. We're going to go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we're going to hold that stitch on the hook. We're going to do that 3 times total and hold them. Don't worry, I'll do this once more for you once you see it. So we're ignoring these chains here. So we've got these 3, and then when we have them, we yarn over and we pull them all together. Okay. And then we're going to chain 1 just to give us a little bit of breathing room here. And we're going to do a cluster now in the next double crochet. And we're going to do this all the way around. So we'll end up with 12 clusters that kind of make the flower petals. So one more time for the cluster. Yarn over twice, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And again, twice over, pull through the stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So each time you're leaving one more on the stitch. And then we've got our 3. We're going to do a final yarn over, and we're going to pull through all of them. There you go. Another chain to move you over, and then another treble cluster. So we're going to do this all the way around until we have 12 petal clusters, and I'll show you how to join at the end of this round. Okay, let's take a look at how many we have. So if you're not sure whether or not to include this last one, just count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I've got my 12, so I know I'm done. And then we are going to slip stitch again into the first actual stitch, not the chains. If you are joining onto the chains, you're going to end up with some gaps that you don't actually want in your coaster. And again, if you find this hole is bugging you, you can just tug it. That's the beauty of a magic loop, and we'll weave it in at the end. Okay, so the next round is going to be chain 2. So we're going to start with the double crochet into the treble cluster. So you can see where they all join up here. There's 1, 2, 3. They all join up right here. This is the stitch that you want to double crochet into. And then we're going to double crochet into the gap in between the 2 sort of flower petals, if you will. And we're going to do 3 double crochet there. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's not a cluster, it's just 3 stitches into the same spot. And then we've got the next treble cluster, and there's the stitch for it. So we're going to put a double crochet into there. And then we're going to do our 3 into the gap again. And we're going to keep doing that around. We should finish with 3 in the gap. So I'll see you on the other side of that. Okay, so we've come up now to our last treble cluster here. And again, just to make sure, I like to double check. I'm going to count the double crochet 3 sections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there is one more. So we need to do our 1 double crochet in the top of this cluster, which is there. And then 3 into the chain 1 space. And then we're going to slip stitch again, not into the top chain, but into the first actual double crochet from the start of the round, so that we don't have gaps. And now this format on its own, depending on your gauge, which is a combination of your yarn and your hook and your technique, might be where you need to stop. And so you need to dry fit it. You can see on the Christmas ones here, I used a 4mm hook on this, and it's an almost 4-inch coaster. But because this yarn, the Bernat Handicrafter, was a little thicker, I had to stop there because I didn't have room for another round. So you can see here's my first 12 double crochet. Here is my treble crochet clusters, and then here's my double crochets going around. So that's where I stopped and started turning for the edges here. So you can see that is a perfectly valid coaster. It's still beautiful. It stacks nicely. So if you dry fit, so what I would do is I would dry fit onto whatever coaster you have. And you'll see on here that I have space for another round. And you can see that very plainly just by kind of looking at it. If it was close to the edge, I'd say it's time to actually start turning. But if not, if you've got this much space, let's go for it. And the other nice thing about the customization is the next round's going to be double crochets again, but if you need to toss it down to half doubles, if you go around and you find it's too wide, then you can make them half doubles instead, and that's no problem. So there are customizations you can do. It's always best to have your coaster actually with you when you're making these, rather than making them and kind of guessing the size, because you might end up with something that doesn't quite fit. And you want it to fit because you want it to look nice and be snug and usable. So the next round, if you are choosing to do another round on the face of it, is to do double crochets again, and it's pretty simple. This one we're going to just chain 2 again to start our round and get up high enough, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 double crochet in the first stitch. So ignoring those chains and just going 2 double crochet, and then we're going to do 1 double crochet. Then we're going to go 2 in the next one. Again, these aren't clusters, you don't join them at the top, it's just 2 double crochet stitches into the same stitch, and then 1 on its own into a stitch. And you're doing that all the way around, so what you're doing is you're turning every 2 stitches into 3 stitches and doing a nice increase that way. Okay, so we can get near the end. I mean, you should still have 2 stitches left and need to put 2 into one and 1 into the end. But don't be too worried if for some reason it doesn't work out that way for you. 1 stitch around this round is not going to make or break the pattern. So once you get to the end, again, we are going to slip stitch into the first double crochet, ignoring the chains that are beside it, as if they're not even there. You can see what I mean about the wave. It's got a little wave to it, but don't worry, that'll smooth it out nicely when we're ready to go. So whether you did this last round or you skipped it because you were already at the size of your coaster, the ending rounds are to do this side piece here and then the back part. Now I use half double crochets for this. If you had much thinner coasters, if you have really thin coasters, you can absolutely just do the same thing but with single crochet instead. The stitch doesn't really matter and there's no increases around here. We're simply doing a round in the back loops. So I like the half double. I think it gives it sort of a nicer, cleaner look when they're stacked together. So I don't have 2 actually in their coasters, but when they get stacked together, it gives a nice clean look. So that's my go-to, is the half double. Double would be too wide unless you had really thick coasters, so feel free to play with it. But because I do half double, I do chain 2 here. And then if you were doing singles around, you would just chain 1 and then yarn over, and I'm working in the back loops. So every stitch has the V here. You can see there's the front and the back of the V here. Front, maybe I'll get something to point with here. Front loop and the back loop that forms the V of this stitch. So we're going to go through the back loop only. So we're going to do that, and that's going to give it this this ridge here and make it kind of turn at 90 degrees. So I'm going to do a half double through the back loop only. If you're not sure, whoops, there we go. If you're not sure what a half double is, it is yarn over, then you go through, you pull the yarn up, yarn over and go through all 3 loops. So it's kind of in between a single and a double, which is why they call it a half double. So we're going to do this all the way around, and I will see you on the other side of it. But remember to do it in the back loops only, kids. We're not going to be putting it into the full stitch. Okay, as you get to the end here, again, you're going to go into your last stitch, which is this one here. And you're then going to slip stitch into your first one, again ignoring the chains, and that gives you your edge where it's going to fold down like this, which is beautiful. Now all we need now is the last round that's actually going to cinch in around the coaster, and it will sit nice and flat, so don't worry about that at all as you go. So how we're going to construct this is we're actually going to use our same stitch that we use, so in my case a half double. I think it gives it enough space to curl around, which is great. And what we're simply going to be doing here is we are going to be, let me double check here. We are just going to be decreasing every second stitch. So again, we're going to work in the back loops, and that will give it the other half of this ridge. So you can see the ridge here that we just created, and then we'll create this ridge that gives it a really nice look when it's stacked. So I'm going to chain 2 for my half double. Again, if you want to use a different stitch here, feel free. Yarn over. So I'll show you how I do half double 2 together, and it really depends on your preference. What I do is I just go through the back loop, yarn over, pull through, and then I do that in the second stitch as well, and then I yarn over and go through all the stitches, and that took 2 into 1 there. And then I'm going to do 1 regular half double, and then I'm going to half double 2 together here again. So grab 1 yarn loop from each stitch, and so on and so forth. So I'm taking every 3 stitches and making them into 2 stitches, and that's going to help cinch it around. And I will see you on the other side after I finish this. Okay, and here we come to the last few stitches. So I'm going to half double in the back loop only, 2 together, and then I'm going to half double, and we should be good to go. Again, we'll join up to the first half double stitch, pull it through, slip stitch, and guess what, guys? We've made it. So what I do next is I leave a bit of a tail, cut my working yarn, whoops, needles backwards, yarn over, pull it through to fasten off. And that's the finished thing. So now what we need to do is we just need to weave in these ends and throw it over the coaster, and we are all the way done. So I use my tapestry needle, which is my blunt-ended needle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the outside one because it's the one closest to me. So I'm going to thread my tapestry needle. Now it's super easy to hide in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull through there, and then all I typically do is send it to the back to be on the wrong side. It's easier there. I like to look for something like this, which is a whole bunch of really close together. Oh, sorry. This is a whole bunch of really close together double crochets. It's really easy to hide it there. So I like to just kind of traverse my yarn down there by going through a couple random loops. I'm going to bring it down here, maybe go through this thing. And then I'm targeting this right here. I'm pretty much at it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a whole bunch of these loops, which are the same on both sides for these double crochet rounds. I'm going to go through some of them like that, pull it through, and then just to make it extra secure, go over, leave 1 loop there that you'll go over, and then go under the ones that you've already gone under again. Just coming through. Make sure on the other side that you're not actually coming through that side. You don't want it to be seen. Then I pull that all the way, take my needle out, do my thing where I stretch it just a little bit and I cut it right near the base there, and then that is absolutely gone. Now for the magic loop, remember we want to pull it to cinch it really tight. I'm going to thread my needle first. Cinch this tight so that it's nice and tight to work with, and then I'm actually just going to use the double crochets that form that initial round there. I'm going to go under a few of the stitches, make sure I grab a couple. There we go. Pull it nice and tight. I'm going to go over the first one that I went through, and then I'm going to go back under these again. And the more you grab, the more length of yarn that you have available to make sure it doesn't pop out during washing or something. So that's good to do. I'll do something like that. Try not to split the yarn as well. And then again, I'm gonna pull tight and cut really close to that edge. And that is complete. You can see the finished product. You have your double crochet round, you've got your treble cluster rounds, your double crochet kind of in the gaps there, and then your double crochet round if the pattern called for it, depending on the size of your coaster. And then it turns with this nice edge. It's got these half doubles around the side, and then it's got the half doubles at the end there too. You could do singles here as well, doesn't really matter. Just whatever you do, you want to be decreasing. And so then we can simply take it, we're going to put our coaster in here. And it fits nicely around, and you position it and you set it down, and your coaster's done. And it's actually pretty simple. It's a nice clean look. The lines are easy to use. It does sit quite nicely with a mug. I'm not sure it's going to show up here, but I'll have lots of photos for you. And then they stack quite nicely. So I've got, you know, this one as well. And then let me just cover one more so that you can see the nice stack of them. So you can give these out in a set, put some nice ribbons around them. It's a great holiday gift or a birthday gift, especially for the person who you're not sure what to get them. So there's one nice stack of them. You can see them here. You can see them with a mug. You can drink. If I had any coffee, it's actually nighttime right now, so I'm not gonna actually have any tea or coffee. But this makes a really great gift. It's really fun and quick to make. I know that this video might have been a little longer than 10 minutes, but I promise you, once you get into a groove, I whip out 10 of them in under 2 hours, I think. So you can really bang through them. And yeah, I want you to have fun with the pattern. Please, please, please tag me, hashtag Yarnworx Studio, Yarnworx with an X. Go to my blog post to see the full written tutorial, and I'll have some tips in there for where to source your stuff, as well as how to make them custom to your various coasters. You can see that they are different, but they have the same elements in them, and it all just depends on your needle or your hook, your gauge, your yarn, and your coaster size. So it can be pretty flexible, and have fun with it. And please hashtag Creamy Crochet Coasters so that I can see your finished work, and have fun crafting, everybody. Thanks for watching, and tune in. Please subscribe and visit my blog, subscribe, get notified, all that fun stuff on YouTube. Okay, thanks everyone.